Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 642, recorded live on Sunday, June 27th. I'm your host, Patrick, coming to you live from Seattle, which is currently in Avernus, apparently. It's 100 degrees here, and we're doing a podcast, and it's fantastic. We also have with us Asheras. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me again. Yeah, last week you were hot under the collar, and now this week you're just hot, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be toasty. There will be more stopping the talking for drinking today. Water full of ice as well. So, this week's screenshot: Keg Begone sees the sunrise in Evening Star in the 515th screenshot of the week's. Thanks, Tarn Red Axe, for sending in this week's screenshot. Nice shot, great shot, love it.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate his name too, Keg Begone.
Yeah, good name. I just like the sky. Like, they do a really good job with the sky a lot of times. Some of the other graphics are kind of, they're dated, but the sky always looks nice.
They do a great job with that. I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. And shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend. And you can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we got some follow-up news from the Epic Destinies, which we talked about in detail last week. So we got some stuff to talk about there, game and community news. However, we're actually going to start again with kind of the, quote, main topic this week of Update 50 preview. So this was on Lamania this last week. It opened on Tuesday. It was open through Thursday, June 24th. Had a whole bunch of stuff that was in it. And we'll kind of go through some of it. Some of it we're going to go through in some detail. Some of it we are not going to go through a lot of detail. And if you've listened to the show for a while, you'll kind of pick up on where some of those might be. But there's kind of some of the basic notes for like the release notes, miscellaneous kind of stuff, which we actually saw most of in the Update 51 preview with the Epic Destinies. We just talked about Epic Destinies so long last week, we didn't get a chance to get through any of this stuff. But there's not a whole lot of big, exciting stuff in here. Knight of the Chalice, the Tier 3 range attack, was sharing its name with a Tier 5 ability. Has its name to be fixed to a different name, so it's now Exalted Shot, matching its melee counterpart. Falconry Meticulous Weaponry, now anti-requisites with other forms of item defense. That's pretty par for the course on those. Eldritch Knight's item defense now gives the listed amount of the item defense, so that's good. This one's interesting. Poison damage resistance now properly reduces poison damage. I mean, that's great, especially if you're playing on hardcore. Although I didn't know that it wasn't.
No, I didn't know either. I don't tend to wear poison damage resistance items, so.
Yeah, right. But, that might be something to think about, especially kind of in those lower levels on hardcore. There's a couple of poison traps. Red Fang and...
what's the one in the marketplace?
Yeah,
by
I'm having the same
SDK?
problem. Yeah. Is that one Sunken Sewer?
Yes, it is.
And the one's missing in action?
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
The Shader Kai iconic ability has been updated. We talked about this. The Shader... Wait, did we talk... Might end up talking about this later. I don't remember if it's in the notes that we've talked about yet or not. We'll kind of back. Same with Radiant Servant. Also, the changes were in there. The Aura of Courage buff from Knight of the Chalice Capstone now reliably applies to all party members. Yay. Druids now get protection from Element's Mass as a level 7 spell. Love that change. That's great.
Yeah.
Guild augments have now been fully deprecated. You can no longer buy guild augments from vendors. Existing guild augments can no longer be slotted. They can be sold back to vendors for gold. Items that had guild augment slots now have a colorless augment slot in its place, unless that item is somehow a quiver, in which case it will not be replaced by anything. Sorry. I'm sorry, quivers with guild augment slots? What?
Yeah, I don't know what that would be.
How? Okay, sure.
Are there any non-named item quivers?
I mean, there's the ones from. Do you count the ones from D Favor as named?
No, I don't. But those wouldn't have guild augment slots, would they?
The only way I can think of that you get a guild augment slot is if you found it in loot.
Yeah, but I didn't think quivers dropped in loot like that unless they were named. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where that would
I don't
how it
think
would have happened.
I don't think they do. I think that like on that note, like the ones that you can get from House D, I mean, put those in the loot tables. That makes perfect sense to me.
Sure. Yeah, I always just thought of quivers the same way I thought of rune arms. Which was that they're pretty much like named or limited access or nothing.
Right.
They're not in general random loot. But okay, must exist somewhere.
Yeah, if you have an item with a guild augment currently in it, it will keep that guild augment until it expires, at which time the slot will be replaced by a colorless augment slot. Please note that items in auction houses and account banks may not lose the guild augment slot and gain the colorless augment slot until they leave those spaces. Siberia's spirit cakes can now be used by raging players to resurrect their dead friends. Yay. I almost kind of wonder, is it time for just all rages to just be rage nicely? Like, I mean, I guess not, but loot gen docents and some older docents should once more display the correct base appearance. Good. Weapons that do non-mundane damage, such as flame blades or Celestia, now correctly interact with DR and resistances, and there was much rejoicing.
That's a huge one. Yeah.
Yeah. I can actually use my Celestias as a DR breaker now more reliably. It's fantastic. I like this change. Trap the Soul now requires a standalone special component called a Kyber Dragon Shard that is found in shops wherever high-quality spell components may be found. This component works for all variations of Trap the Soul. Yay.
That's cool.
Simplify that. I mean, I don't know what we're doing with our Kyber Dragon Shards now. And I assume they're still going to pollute my my loot tables. But, I mean, this is still a good change there.
Mm-hmm.
Monsters will no longer cast persistent spells like Wall of Fire or CC spells like Sound Burst and Rapid Succession. Yay.
Okay. Yeah.
Can we add trips to that from wolves?
Yeah, please.
This one was a funny one. Barovia is a dangerous place, and the Abbey of St. Markovia is no exception. Those who seek safety may not always find it. There were some questions about what, like, come on, guys. This, like, what is this release note? Basically, it's an exploit fix. That's the answer. They didn't say what it is. I could hazard a guess at what it is, but that's probably not wise for my own play, so I won't. But that's what's going on there. Yeah. They removed some NPCs from Iridia that were not meant to be there. Kind of sort of curious as to which ones those were, but sure. Changes have been made to the spellcasting system that make casting spells more reliably. Or should be more reliable, maybe. This may prevent dry firing of spells in certain situations. Yay!
Absolutely, yay.
Hirelings now cast their spells more reliably when directed to. They fixed an issue where trying to swap out of a missile weapon into a melee weapon wouldn't queue properly. It's probably good. Patron reward feature now consistently remain on you through lesser and epic reincarnation. And can I just say, well done and God bless to those who catch that kind of thing, because I certainly don't.
Yeah, same here.
Icons for certain drow damage over time poisons has been set to actually look like poison. Cool. Hey, I hope that that poison damage resistance helps here. Let's see. When viewing a monster's hit points through selection, due to having the appropriate monster manual reward for that monster type, the percentage hit points of that monster will now be shown in parentheses next to their current and maximum hit points. Cool.
That's a neat idea. I like it, I guess.
I don't hate it. My question would be, like, I didn't make it onto Lemania this week for a number of reasons. So my question kind of revolves more around what does it look like from a text standpoint, like if things are falling off or getting crowded. I don't know. I don't know how much I need this. Now, having said that, I do math pretty well, so I don't have a problem estimating percentages on the fly quickly. And I know that's not true of a lot of players, so I think the change is good. I'm just not sure. I'm a little cautious about what it's going to make it look like, right?
Yeah.
I don't play with the percentages on for players, for example. I just use the hit points.
Yeah, same here.
The bar is enough of it for me, I think. So, but hey, cool, fine, whatever. Maybe make this a choice in UI. I don't know if that's possible, but yeah, sure, whatever. Half elves have had a cosmetic revamp. I haven't seen anyone complain about this. I'm sure someone has, but I think most people were just like all yay for this.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't actually looked at them yet to get a feel for if it's a market improvement or what, but all I've heard is some positive feedback.
I mean, I saw like a handful of pictures, so, but and it seemed fine. I didn't have a huge problem with them to begin with, but I also don't care super much about cosmetic things. I like what I like, and I kind of tend to ignore the rest. Let's see. Monster perception range is now slightly smaller. This may not apply to raid bosses or custom bosses. I'm interested in what the custom boss is, but sure. And then saving throws on all epic monsters on Elite and Hard have been reduced, and the Legendary 2 monster boosts have been removed. We'll circle back to that later.
Yeah.
That's the miscellaneous stuff. Sinister. Or unless you have something you want to pipe in here, we'll go on to Saltmarsh.
The only thing I would say is I think half elves needed a tree revamp more than a cosmetic revamp. Other than that, nothing else to say.
Sure, but that would be different people, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's not artists. I'm just saying that the whole dilettante system is kind of uninspired.
Yeah, the dilettante thing's kind of fun, but it's not very. It doesn't feel very practical, right? Like, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I can't think of the last time I actually wanted to play a half elf, as I for any reason.
I'm trying to think if my ranger is a half elf currently. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a ranged build where you're not taking the negative to con, but still getting access to Arcane Archer might be one of the few reasons why you would do it.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh is expected to contain, when released on live, at least 9 dungeons and a wilderness adventure area. This preview, however, only has the following 5 dungeons able to preview. They are levels 3 and 32. So that's. I'm not super hot on the level 3 part.
Yeah, I mean, we just did the
Gatekeepers.
The Gatekeeper stuff at level 3, and Borderlands is 1 and 2. I would agree with you on that. I think we need something a little higher than that.
Yeah.
But
and Feywild is 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Maybe you could have made them 4.
Yeah, maybe
4 would have been good. I mean, there's a lot of 4 quests too, but 4 would be fine.
Having just run through a hardcore, I still feel like level 10 is a level where there's just not a ton of stuff. I feel like you come out of 9
there's not, but that's also Ravenloft.
Yeah, but Ravenloft's not. I mean, because of how they did the quest with a 4-4-4 at different levels, level 10 itself doesn't have a ton there. Most of it's at level 11 or level 12. Level 10 itself is still, in my opinion, one of the lightest levels that we've got. I don't know, but anyways.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of more on the. I feel like 8-9 would have been a good spot.
Yeah, I mean that's also a good spot too, just in terms of there's not a lot of newer content in that level range. Everything you're running there is older. So.
Yep. Let's see. I'm not gonna go through the no. Anyway, that's Saltmarsh. There's not a lot here in terms of that. It's just the dungeons. If you were on there and you wanted, like, XP had not been done, the DM voice is not in, the music is mostly a placeholder. So, let's see the next item on the list. Endgame itemization. I'll say
We're gonna
this.
start.
Don't.
We're gonna go there first, huh? Okay.
I mean, I just went in the order list that they had. I think so. Oh, I guess I didn't really. Yeah, we're gonna go there next. It's the stuff that we're gonna talk about more, anyways. All right. So, with Update 50, they are making some adjustments to curtail power creep within DDO's endgame, focusing specifically on the power level of items at the level cap. These adjustments will change how you approach gearing and will encompass both adjustments to player power in addition to content difficulty. They want to go into more detail about why they're doing this and what it means, and give them their feedback. Background information. They have steadily increased the amount of power available in itemization in order to provide a sense of progression as the endgame has matured. This strategy has resulted in 2 long-term challenges, both of which they are here to address. Challenge 1. Item power level increases over time as they release new content, and as they progress beyond the item power level of older content at the same challenge level. Challenge 2. As they follow along the system of progression, they in turn increase the difficulty of content to provide challenge. This leads to a situation where content meant to be played at a certain character level ends up with a wide range of difficulty. With these 2 challenges in mind, they're aiming to equalize and reduce the power level of items found in endgame content and adjust the power level of monsters at endgame to match. Yeah. And I'll just kind of put like a little quick aside on the power level of monsters. They actually mentioned this. We'll get there later, but they mentioned that this in terms of like the Epic Destiny Pass and some stuff there is also some of the reasons why that thinking and numbers were kind of where they were, which they didn't really talk about then. So, go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, we can talk about our. You want to talk about this right now and then go on to the next stuff?
Oh, I thought you had something you wanted to jump in before I kept reading.
No, go ahead. Well,
right.
we can kind of cover the whole thing as a unit when we get to the end of it.
Yeah, it's broken up in 2 parts. But if you want me to stop, if you got something you want to say, don't stop me. Named items found. So this is the itemization part of this. In summary, named items found with legendary content will be adjusted and normalized to values appropriate to their minimum level. This means that an item found within Ravenloft will match the power level of an item found within Sharn or Feywild or any of their other current legendary content. This adjustment will pull the item values to more reasonable levels across the board, resulting in a streamlined curve that extends upwards from 1 to 30 with fewer jumps and tracks with both randomly generated loot and Cannith crafted loot. This will not affect anything other than the named items found within legendary content and Cannith crafted loot that use the minimum levels 31 to 34 shards. Random loot, augments, named or otherwise, items found within events, or anything else other than the named items found within legendary content and Cannith crafted loot that is used in that will be changing. I think it's supposed to be will not be changing. That list of stuff is already in line with those numbers, right? It's just the name stuff that's like going crazy with the stats and stuff. Items will be adjusted in place without any necessary intervention on the player's part to prevent the situation where legacy versions are more powerful than the new versions. These items will continue to drop in the same place they currently do at the same drop rates. Items with crafted components such as Slaver's Crafting will have their crafted components adjusted just like the statistically set effects found on non-crafted gear. Set bonuses at endgame will have their numerical power adjusted to appropriate values to match the new goals for player power sourced from itemization at endgame. The plus W bonus from Keen has been adjusted to instead provide complete fortification bypass on a natural 20. Note that this isn't working yet in the preview. I'm actually going to put a quick little aside there.
Sure.
Just because, we've got Keen. Oh, wait, do we have... Never mind, that's Vorpal. Never mind. What's this say?
Yeah.
Although I will, say it anyways. There's an opportunity here maybe for improved Keen then. So on a 19 to 20, you automatically bypass all fortification.
I like this for a couple of reasons. I still like the W bonus, obviously, but I like keeping something in there that makes Keen worthwhile, even when you have improved crit and that sort of thing. So
a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, it's pretty useful. So.
Yeah, the other question with that is how much fortification bypass do people really need?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about when we talk about monsters, they're pulling fortification values down, and
they didn't have a lot to begin with.
Well, they had a bunch, but we also had a lot of fortification bypass. So I don't know. Raid items and minor artifacts will retain their proportional power boosts to other items at the same level, and therefore will remain a step stronger than other items at the same level. This means that the items you find at endgame will be lower in item power than they were before, but are now evenly scaled across content packs. This means that an item found in Feywild will be equally as strong as an item found within Sharn or Ravenloft or the Dragonblood Prophecy or any other legendary content featuring level 29 items. To provide some concrete context, this is what the numbers will look like. Will likely end up at the current level cap. Also note that raid items and artifacts will be a few steps higher than what's shown here as well. Stats, level 28 would be 12, 29, and 30 would be 13. That's down from 22, I think, right?
Yeah, oof. That's a big drop.
Oof, indeed. Hold on to your hats, folks. Don't grab the pitchfork. Don't light the torch yet. PRR and MRR is will be at level 28, 32, then 33, then 34 to level 30. Spell power will be 139, 142, 146. And spell crit will be 20, 20, 21. All these are level 28, 29, 30, by the way. DCs for single things will be 5, 5, then 6. I think that's down from 9, right?
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah, and what
So
spell power was like what? In the 180s? Is that right?
Ooh. I didn't think this was that far off, actually. I could be wrong on that, but I didn't think it was that far off. I thought it was pretty close.
PRR was around 45
no, I think you're right.
or 50-ish.
I think you're right. No, it is like 200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, spell power is going way down. They're all going way down. Double strike will be 14, 15, 15. That's all subject to change. That's the itemization. So, do you want to go first?
Sure, why not? So, I guess I'm not even sure where to begin with this topic because I get what they're trying to do and what the goal is. I understand the idea that power creep in the game has been pretty challenging to deal with, and it creates a lot of haves, have-nots issues. It creates a lot of issue with new content and old content because new content. I get everything they said. It all makes perfect sense. But wow,
big jump.
Yeah, it did. It really jumps. I mean, when you look at how quickly it jumps, and you're getting up to like with what is it, like 20? Actually, it's up to 22 with some of the what else? The minor artifact items and such like that. It's a huge step backwards to go all the way back down to 13 again. And the other question I've got is okay. I mean, I know later on we're going to talk about the Steel Shard scroll system. And how they're redoing that loot, but then I know they had been touching other epic modules and kind of cleaning some things up. I remember they did a thing recently to align the level 26, 28, that sort of thing.
You're talking about the raids.
About the raids. Yeah, getting all the raids in line with their tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, which I've really liked that a lot.
Yep. I agree.
But there's but with Epic Destiny revamps coming through, and you're making level 20 to 30 a lot different, you've still got a lot of epic loot that hasn't been touched, like Menace of the Underdark or Epic Giant Hold and those dragon helms and armors, or High Road or the Druid's Chain, or any of that stuff that's in that 22 to 26 range. If they really want, I mean, and none of that stuff's been balanced on the curve. It's all still behind the curve. If you're going to fix the curve, I would have rather seen them kind of roll from 20 forward. Yeah, either fix the whole curve at once or roll forward from 20 up and get to this stuff last. Especially when the nerf is. I'd rather you give us better loot throughout the leveling and then come in and do this at the end. But not that I like this per se, but I get why they're doing it. And I mean, if they're gonna. The challenge is going to be the adjustment of the monsters and making sure that the game still feels like it's the right challenge level for people, which, by the way, is thankless thing that's going to be hard to hit because you're not to match what new or less experienced players, or even just average players feel is a challenge compared to what metagamers and really strong end game players feel as a challenge is always going to be tough. So
Yeah. I think this had to happen with Epic Destinies, right? Like this was the outlier when it comes to the gear problem. Gear that's not up to that curve, I think, is less of an issue. Although, with the scroll steel shard stuff that we're going to talk about in a bit, some of that will be less problematic. But stuff that's below the curve, not a big deal. It's not going to be used until it does become part of that curve. But I think fixing the curve to even that out will really help a lot of things. My kind of critique with this is less around this. Like, this all seems fine, right? If you get the monster balance fine, the stats and the gear that we have shouldn't be a problem, right? Like, if it's still everything's in a good spot, that's fine. My problems with this have more to do with kind of a more of a broader game design thing of one, this is just gonna like overpopulate gear at that level. And because you have all of this content that's just level 29 gear. I think, and I kind of had this comment with Fate when Feywild came out too. They're looking to push the level cap up a little bit in the near future, right? It was supposed to go up with Feywild. That didn't happen. They wanted to finish Epic Destiny Pass first. So, you start looking at these things. I think the next big thing, right, is going to be level cap increasing. I kind of wish that they took, they're doing all this work right now, that they took the time to start pushing the level of dungeons past 32. Like, Saltmarsh, I would rather see Saltmarsh at maybe like 33, maybe even 34. And have their items be level 30, which is actually what's going to happen anyways, because we'll talk about the scroll steel shard stuff. So I would kind of actually like them to be, maybe they take Feywild and make Feywild level 32 to 33. Although it may actually be some, I'm not sure. But like take some of this content and push the level up a little bit. I realize that, then like this would be more of a band-aid to rip off, but I'd kind of like to see some of maybe some of this content that we already have become level 30 items. Like, example, Feywild or Perils would be two places where maybe that gear should become level 30.
Yep, I agree with that.
Because the numerical values aren't going to be that much different, right? The stats don't look like they're going to be that different. We're talking about 4 spell power, 1 PRR, MRR. Although, in the grand scheme of things, maybe they could just stay there anyways. But I would like to see them start filling in beyond 32 a little bit more, just because there's so much. You're going to have so much gear now that's going to be relevant. And so much so that like my brain just went, nope. Tell me what's good, guys.
It's tough. It really is. Well,
in theory, it's all going to be roughly the same power. So what I have right now should be great, anyways.
Yeah, there's going to be some opportunities potentially, and maybe some gear that you had been invalidated will now not be invalidated anymore. Maybe some of this stuff from.
You mean all the stuff I already fed to sentient gems?
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is what happens though when you release 3 expansions without a level cap increase, and I think what we're going to probably see is that there's going to be a closer proximity to expansions and level cap increases, because that's going to allow them to provide a step up in loot without creating this bottleneck like they have here, where you've got gear sets that just become, they're at the same level as other gear sets, but they're just completely underwhelming anymore. And that makes sense. And I hope that that direction lasts them for I don't know how many years. But if they're going to go in 1 or 2 level increments to get to 40, then it sounds like that would last for what 5, 6, 7 years. So
I would
And then
also
who
point
knows
out that
beyond that?
it's not just 3 expansions, right? It's 3 expansions plus the mini expansion that's coming with Ghost of Saltmarsh.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, but
It's a
you're
lot of
right.
content.
But you are right, because when the cap was 30, they never really wanted to put any gear at 30 so that you couldn't wear it until you were
Right.
at cap. They wanted to have it at 29 or at 28 so you could wear it for longer. And that decision now creates what you just said, which is that there's a lot of gear at those two levels and almost nothing at 30. So
I mean, there's almost nothing at 28 too. Like I think you could make
Yeah.
the same argument that some of that stuff maybe should become 28.
yeah, I mean,
Push
I would-
some of them down, push a few of them up, and
Mhm.
again, I know I know players would have a reaction of, well, now I can't wear it to level 30. Well, yes, but one, there's going to be a lot of level 29 gear that is in theory more or less the same level. It's not like the stuff that you were used to wearing is not going to be, and also the stuff you're used to wearing is not going to be yards and miles better than what you could get at 28, right? Like there's not going to be this big level or big gear power increase from 28 to 29 anymore. It's going to be very incremental.
Yeah.
So,
We're still going to have the 25 to 26 cliff, but that's about it.
I mean, that's only because of shroud items, though, right?
Pretty much, yeah, because a lot of the other 26 stuff hasn't been cleaned up yet
Assuming
either.
some of the shroud set bonuses don't change.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that mean the shroud spell power is going to be higher than other stuff? Or are they going to change shroud spell power too? We'll see.
Yeah, I have to see. It might be.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, if you get the monster power right here, I think that's fine. I just like to see them start spreading out some of this gear because there's going to be so much gear that's at level 29. It's going to be like the Tetris is going to be obscene.
Yeah, because what is Shroud? Shroud's like what, 150?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
assume they're going to pull the spell power down on Shroud, but I could be wrong. So we'll. I mean, it did say items with crafted
15.
components like such as Slaver's gear. So I would assume that Shroud would be in there.
Yeah, because
I don't know what they're going to do with the Shroud set bonuses though.
Well, because Shroud has the plus 15 stat as well, which no one really uses much, but it still exists.
Yeah, so that'll probably be pulled down. I think it's more the set bonus, right? Particularly the hit points, spell points.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're going to change it, this is the time, right? And if you're going to move stuff around in level range, this is the time, which I'd like to see them broaden it out a little bit. And I'd even say, we're going to talk about the monster power stuff. Like I'd even say some of these quests should become 33, 34, like start going beyond level 30 is imminent, right? Like these changes are clearly imminently we're going to go beyond level 30.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big problems they talked about that we had when we went from 20 to 25 was the only content we had to play at those levels was essentially stuff at level 20 and then Menace of the Underdark.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we've got a lot of quests at level 30, 31, 32. Mm-hmm. Those level 30 quests make that gear level 28 or 27, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we're using that gear in high numbers right now, anyways. So this is the time to make those changes. Monster power. They've been increasing the power level of monsters found at the level cap as the power level of items increased over time. Since they are adjusting items downwards, they will be adjusting monsters downwards to match. The most notable change with the system is the removal of legendary tier system as it relates to monsters. A monster at endgame will ideally be just as difficult no matter which dungeon it is found in. The removal of legendary tier system will represent a significant reduction in the offensive and defensive statistics of monsters found at the level cap, which means that monsters will be much weaker than they were before. They're also removing the epic and hard save boosts found in all monsters across epic content. We'll keep going. Given that each monster in the game has different stats and therefore a different starting point, it's hard for us to tell you exactly where each number will end up, but we can give out some comparisons to help demonstrate how dramatic this change will be. For example, monsters across all of epics will have 6 fewer saving throws. Monsters at endgame specifically will instead have 16 fewer saves. This also does not include the current planned removal of epic resilience, which will remove an additional 6 saving throws for a total reduction of 22. DC casters just did backflips.
Yeah, well, because we didn't see the DC gear go down that much.
No. Let's
They
see. We
probably
lost, what do we say, 10 main stat and 3 DC.
yeah,
Probably more than that with Insightful and stuff.
Yeah, you have to flow through Insightful, which is half of and everything. Yeah, but still not 22.
Yep. Monsters will not just be losing saving throws. Legendary 2-tier buff corresponded to 150% fortification bypass, 60 attack bonus, and 10 spell penetration, as well as a whole host of other offensive and defensive buffs. Designed to make them hit harder and take more hits, they hope that our monster rescaling ends up making content feel more realistic and more accessible, and are able to do more adjustments if necessary.
I'm curious how that loss of 60 attack bonus is going to play out. Because one of the concerns I always had playing a melee was that you needed dodge and things like that because AC was, unless you were a tank, was just ridiculous to try and get to on a DPS melee. But it'd be nice to see if that was something that was viable.
Well, I am assuming our AC values are going to go down in the tank realm too.
Yeah.
Although possibly not as much as other things, right? Because, I mean, oh no, you're pulling dex items down from 20 to 13, as though I was using that much to dex bonus on my tank to begin with, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll see other numbers change a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this all sounds good to me, right? Like, if the power level stays about the same, I like the idea that, monsters across the board at endgame will be more even, right? Like, there's a noticeable difference right now of Sharn versus Ravenloft in terms of content difficulty because of how difficult the monsters are. I like the idea that monsters not hitting as hard, and I don't think monsters hitting hard is challenge or fun necessarily.
Agreed.
My kind of question about this is, what does this mean? How is Reaper going to feel? Is really kind of my big question. What's it going to feel like? And granted, I wasn't able to go on Lamania, both from a time standpoint, and I just chose not to for the little bit of time I had to play. But I like that they're making these changes together. That makes sense. I think being willing to make more changes, and stuff. So
it feels to me like what they're saying here, and it's really tough because we don't have specifics, and
sure.
The chances of them making an equal modification to monsters and to loot that will simultaneously, as well as the epic revamp, epic destiny revamp, that will result in the same exact place we're at right now seems virtually impossible to hit. And it sounds like as well, though, that that's not even their goal. That their goal is to actually make things, I think they said in there, more accessible, for people, which I read between the lines to say we're trying to, gain back maybe some ability for newer players or more casual players to not feel overmatched by content. But I think you're right about what does that mean for the R10 or the R6 and above metagamer who, has quite honestly has already kind of tackled all the challenge that existed there.
I mean, hopefully it means that we're getting new content and higher levels, but
yeah.
I mean, I personally would kind of like to see the Reaper, Reaper needs to be touched as well, and I think it's on the radar to do some adjustments to Reaper mode as well. This will touch some of it as well. Reaper 10 being harder does not bother me that much.
No, me neither.
Even Reaper 6 being a little bit harder, I think I'm still fine with that.
Me too.
But I don't want Reaper 1 to 4 to become less accessible either.
No, I wouldn't say that.
So there's some challenges there. I also personally would like to see Reaper mode just kind of revamped in ways that are different, where more challenge does not equate to they hit harder and take less damage and have more hit points. I mean, that can be part of it, but I think there'd be kind of some more I think it'd be a really natural place to throw in the extra suites of champions we have, for example, and have monsters like some maybe a couple more Reapers that do different things that make it more challenging. There's other ways to make challenge than just they're harder to kill and they hit you harder, right? Like,
yeah, I'm with you on that. It does sound though like if they're going to bring down the mobs, then that might actually create a gap between Elite and R1 too, which would be interesting because I think most people feel like there's actually R1's easier because you get your spell points back, but otherwise it's not that much difference.
Continuing on, I think this was Linabelle, wrote some updates to kind of check in and some feedback in no particular order. They're pretty confident that the changes are fair for DC casters, but are not meeting the mark for those who actually deal damage, either via melee range or spellcasting. Melee range players are specifically also fighting against the old problem made new again, namely that the AC formulas climb much higher than accuracy does. With that in mind, some stuff that's tended to change. They're going to apply a blanket debuff to monsters at cap that takes a chunk out of their AC. Cool. They're exploring ways to safely globally adjust monster hit points at cap downwards. Both of these exact solutions have numbers they're still noodling on. And they're not 100% confident on their end what those are going to be. They've got a ton of great feedback on the adjustments on the player end. They're still cataloging. Hey, thanks to all the people who went to Lamani and hammered on this. Good job, guys. They're also going to adjust certain specific quests in Epic, such as Tower of Frost and the White Plume Mountain auxiliary dungeons, by drastically pulling down their scaling. It's probably good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hey, while you're doing that, maybe Another Man's Treasure, the spikes on heroic also could be toned down a touch.
Oi, yeah.
Now that all the items are on a set scaling curve, they can also start doing something that he's been personally excited for, namely doing across-the-board individual stat adjustment. What this means is that they're going to try adjusting the actual ratio of item power levels to statistics, effectively adjusting all items that use that specific statistic without further intervention necessary on the part of the player. The two stats they're exploring for this are raising the values of spell resistance found on items and raising the value of spell penetration on items. Why those ones specifically? Because they're very binary, and due to how the monster's CRs are calculated, can stand to be inflated slightly. As part of this overhaul, they may not actually be adjusting monster CRs, which means that the only way to adjust how players interact with the system is to adjust their spell resistance and spell penetration stats directly. And since they can now do a per stat adjustments, why not start here? I'll just even throw out there too that I feel like this game could probably use a few more uses of spell penetration. Where is spell penetration an issue? Generally just drow, maybe.
I find that it's interesting because I was just doing a hardcore run and playing a caster, and it seemed like there was no issue with spell penetration, and then all of a sudden I got into level 20. I started running Menace of the Underdark, and I think the first couple of, but then even in other content as well, those drow are tough. There's a couple other mobs. I noticed that my spell pen was failing for probably about 5 or 6 levels there before it started to clean itself up again, and then it wasn't a problem going forward. Although Sharn was kind of tough, as I recall. I think Sharn has some spell pen trouble.
It's been a long time since I've done a DC caster with any real effort. But I feel like that whole spell penetration, spell resistance, both from a player side and a monster side, just doesn't. I just kind of ignore it, and when it comes up, oh well. I think it'd be kind of more fun to, and maybe it's just because I'm playing DC casters terribly. I'm going into this dungeon. Maybe I'll throw on some extra spell resistance that might actually do something beneficial for me. Maybe I need to have spell penetration equipped for this particular dungeon or something like that. So.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever cared about spell resistance.
Yeah. Not unless you were like a drow that had spell resistance built in, or like a monk that had spell resistance built in, and you were able to get it really high. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Linabelle did comment a little bit on Reaper mode. So there's a question about, is Reaper mode going to be harder or easier? I think the title of this particular thread was "Hope you got your Reaper XP farming done now." I mean, I would say hold on. Like I don't think it's that hard to, even if you can't do R. Farming Reaper XP does not need to be R10 or bust, right? Like you can still get a lot of Reaper XP and not be able to do R10s. It's okay. Anyways, he said Reaper mode does a few things to monsters. Some of these things are proportional, some are flat. What this means that in some ways Reaper mode will in fact be getting harder because the flat bonuses are not changing. If the base value of the bonus goes down proportionally, but the flat Reaper buff stays the same, then yes, it does weirdly enough put us in a situation where not adjusting Reaper mode's rules will make it effectively proportionally more difficult. Reading between the lines a little bit there, like I don't, him saying weirdly kind of keys me in to say that it's probably not their finished place with that. Again, I think Reaper mode is kind of on the docket as something else that they want to kind of look at, if for no other reason than the Reaper points getting applied and unapplied is kind of lag inducing and server performance inducing. So might see some changes there.
I think it's safe to say we're going to see changes for several updates going forward after this. Yeah, they're going to iterate through this. There's no way they strike the balance on the first pass.
Well, I think they're trying to make these big changes before they go to fix problems that exist now before we go into legendary content, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Short and long-term benefits to these changes. Content pack parity. This change will put all of the content packs at endgame on the same item level scaling. This means a large number of items that had previously been crunched out of viability are now able to be worked into gear sets without fear that you're settling for a subpar option.
I like the way they said crunched out. Literally, they were crunched out of existence.
Can of the crafting viability. This change means that if you have missing parts of your gear set, can of the crafting is now a more appealing way to fill those gaps, similar to lower levels. It also means it can dedicate more time to improving can of the crafting, as its viability doesn't fall off as they approach endgame. Sounds great. Random loot viability. Too long, don't read. Same idea, right? Like random loot is somewhat comparable. They don't generally expect players to use random loot at endgame, especially established players. But newer or less engaged ones will have more viable sources. Also hardcore, just saying.
Yeah.
Augment scaling. This change will mean that the revamped augments and augment system are comparatively more valuable than they were before. Avoiding difficulty spikes. The adjustments of monsters at endgame will help us avoid difficulty spikes, which in this case means content where there's no outward indications more difficult than normal, but in reality contains tougher enemies and another quest at the same level. The goal is to provide an endgame in which everyone can contribute, but still encourage dedicated play and mastery with a variety of options. I think this is good to a point. I kind of like there being a little bit of variety of difficulty, right? Like I don't have an issue with some quests being more difficult than others. Within reason, right? Terminal Delirium might be pushing. It might be a little bit beyond that, where I'd like that to be difficulty wise, but
yeah, I mean, you just spent what? If we're talking about level 28 and above, you just spent 27 levels dealing with the fact that STK is markedly less difficult than newer content at that level, or that the Dragon Blood Prophecy, you're going to deal with it at level 32, but you're not going to deal with it at level 10 when those quests are a nightmare compared to other Tempest Spine, for example. I mean, I don't know. I think that's part of the game. When you got a 15-year-old game, so I get what they're trying to do, but I also don't know that it's that big of a deal that all the content in a particular level be super equivalent.
But I think it could be closer than it is right now. Impact on content creation. Being able to use existing monster formulas without the need for additional and oftentimes lengthy one-off work makes it easier to stat monsters for dungeons. Great. I like it.
I am all for that. Anytime they say, hey, these changes might kind of suck in the short term, but in the long term, they make it able for us to adapt. And that's one. I know I wasn't on the podcast last week, but one of the things I like about the Epic Destiny system is that when they say this will allow us to add new Epic Destiny trees and things like that, and make a system that was very boxed in now feel like it can be a growing living thing, because they've made it something they can edit easily. Then that's always got value to me.
Combat and statistical granularity. One of the game's greatest strengths is the granularity of numbers in its content, but working with larger numbers is generally more challenging than working with smaller numbers. They want to attain as much granularity as they can while making gear set math easier. I mean, I don't feel like the gear set math is hard right now, but sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, there's always that question of, okay, if this is Dungeons and Dragons, and we're trying to stay roughly close to the pencil and paper feel, then you really don't want to get to numbers that are just insane.
Yeah.
But they crossed that Rubicon already, though, too, to a large degree. So.
Smooth leveling. The long-term goals with DDO involve providing a smooth and exciting level experience across all levels and difficulties, not just from 1 to 20. This change allows us to provide a smoother leveling curve by removing the large jump in power at level 29. I was going to say that the large power jump at 29 was kind of exciting, right? Like, ooh, I'm 29. Let's go get the really good gear, right?
Yeah.
And that will actually still be true to a certain extent, right? Because there's still going to be set bonuses that,
Yep.
I mean, you're basically going to be getting at level 29.
And you still have 3 expansions worth of raid loot there as well, which is still going to have, the larger slot density plus the set bonuses. There's still going to be value for sure.
Now, on the flip side, this is pushing me even harder to say that Tier 5 Epic Destiny should be level 29, not level 30. Because there was more than... We got a lot of feedback on our episode. Thank you very much for all those who were chiming in, and particularly in support of some of the things that we didn't like. But one person, at least 1 or 2 people were like, if this is a Tier 5 is level 30, at least we still have we still have that big power boost from gear at 29. So it's not going to be that big. Well, that's going away. It was a good argument, but they just undercut it. So, yeah. So I get the smoother thing. I think big... I don't know that smoother is more exciting.
No, I don't know that they can... I don't know that smooth should be a goal overall. You're going to get those, certain places. I mean,
yeah,
it happens in heroics. I mean, if you're talking about like a smooth experience leveling, I can still tell you level 11 is super exciting.
You mean going to 11 or going to 12?
Going to 11 is super exciting from a gear standpoint, and 12 as well, for that matter, because you're getting your shroud items, and also at level 12 you get your extra core, plus you get access to the tier 5s.
Uh-huh.
I mean, so it's not. I mean, it's not that smooth. There's levels that are great and levels that aren't so great, and I think that's fine.
And I think it's still going to be true, right? When you get new cores in your Epic Destinies, it's going to be, Tier 5 should be 29. Thank you. Future-proof design. One of the biggest benefits of this change is how future-proof it is. We will only need to do an endgame adjustment like this once, and if it's largely done, and we can continue onwards into the future with better endgame. I mean, yes, but I feel like I've heard this before.
Sure, yeah. Well, as long as you don't do the same thing you did here,
right?
Which is keep the level cap at one place and drop 3 expansions on it.
And keep increasing the gear to get people to go farm. Yeah. As long as you don't make the same mistakes that you made the last 3 times, and we're having the same conversation the last 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, there was a reason why we had to rebalance, from when the cap went up from 28 and when the cap went up from 25. Yeah, I mean, every time we've raised the cap, we have the same issue.
Yep.
Which is why there's some people who hate raising the cap.
I think you said this earlier, right? Like if the cap increases is happening more regularly, then that's less of an issue, right? You don't bottleneck. The bottleneck happened because cap was at the same place for so long.
It's been a really long time, but I don't recall, and I came in when the cap was 14, I think, but I don't recall feeling like the 14 to 16, and that sort of thing was a big deal. I wasn't here for the 10 to 12 and the 12 to 14, but my understanding is that wasn't as problematic because it was happening, more regularly, and as a result,
have a huge content bottleneck problem, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
All right. Update 50 named loot. We're not going to go through the named loot. If there's anything you want to call out, feel free. But to me, it was kind of now.
It was really hard for me.
We're gonna get to the scroll seal shard here in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard. I think you're probably gonna go here too. Like it's hard from a standpoint of the numbers don't make sense anymore.
No, they don't. Yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, how does that fit? I don't. I'm not sure I understand it. I'm processing it all that well because the numbers. Now, yeah, I mean, but I do see some things that I think I saw one item that brought back in the sheltering, and I thought they had moved away from offering sheltering as a general item, only doing physical or magical sheltering. But so that was interesting to see. I think there's a set of bracers that has that. So
it's on the heavy armor as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although it could be some of that could be typo-y stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. There was some interesting stuff. Like there's a belt that gives you evasion when you're swimming. I mean,
that's a fun thing.
Yeah, there was some interesting effects I thought in there, which is nice. I like it when they try and find new effects or unique ideas versus just the same stats over and over again.
Yeah, there was. I didn't feel like there was anything to like write home about.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to pick in the numbers. It is level 30 gear, again, right? Like, I'm fine with it being level 30. I just feel like we should also move some of the other gear up to level 30 as well, just to kind of help backfill it so when we do go up. But maybe they'll start doing. There's probably going to be some more content that's going to be coming out. So maybe at least the newer content will kind of push that, stay in the 30 range and all that jazz.
Yeah, a lot of this is going to come into and again, how does this compete with set bonuses and such from the other packs? I mean, those set bonuses are really powerful in a lot of cases.
Take everything you knew about the numbers of itemization and blow it all up.
Yep.
Good luck.
Which is kind of fun in some way. I mean, I
think it's fun when there's like a certain number of items that's maybe like a third of what we currently have, but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There are also some new augments. Again, we're not going to go through these. There was nothing that stood out to me.
No, I mean, I like that they're adding smites or they're adding dragon marks. Although, I mean, not sure that many people use dragon marks all that much. That's a whole other topic. Is what can we do with dragon marks? It's actually interesting, but I don't know.
Yeah. Scroll Seal Shard revamp. Hey, it's here, guys. Here we go.
Finally.
Yeah. Right. Update 50 includes the complete refactor of the Scroll Seal Shard crafting system. Here we go. All of the heroic items from the following packs will be revamped as part of this packs. Web of Chaos, Vault of Night, Chronoscope, Sands of Manectarin, which is not in this preview, Fjorland Carnival, the Red Fens, and Sentinels of Stormreach. All of the epic items from the above packs will also be revamped to bring them up to the appropriate scaling values, as with the other revamps. All of the above packs will also get level 30 legendary versions of their items that will be competitive for endgame play. So, I mean, when you say that, I guess there is a lot of level 30 gear coming, too. Anyways.
Oh, yeah.
So, what's changing with the upgrade flow? Heroic items will continue to drop as is. Epic items are obtained in the Altar of Epic Rituals with the following recipe. Heroic item plus 50 pack ingredients plus 5 greater tokens of the 12 if the item is from a raid. I kind of wonder if there should be normal tokens of the 12 involved in that, if they're not, but I guess not. Anyways.
Or you can convert. Well, you can only convert greater into lesser, right?
Right.
Or right into regular. Okay.
Legendary items are obtained in a new Altar of Legendary Rituals with the following recipe. Epic item, plus 100 pack ingredients, plus 5 star fragments, plus 250 threads of fate if the item is from a raid. Sure.
Okay.
The pack ingredients will drop wherever seals or shards would drop in a moderate amount and will likely take 2 to 3 runs of a quest to get enough of the material for one item. These ingredients are pack specific. For example, the pack ingredient for the Chronoscope would be a broken sliver of time, etc. You'll likely collect quite a bit of these, as they're a guaranteed drop, and they're also obtained elsewhere as specified below. Star Fragments will be an uncommon drop from Legendary Saltmarsh to start and will become more available later on, just like how Empty Soul Vessels will be joining the list of Thread of Fate's purchasable items as of Update 50. Our goal is that it will be not hard to find enough of these items to upgrade your items. Hold on, backing up. Empty Soul Vessels will be joining the list of Threads of Fate purchasable items as of Update 50. That's
nice.
cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Way to bury the lead, guys. Yeah, it seems fine. I think it was like Empty Soul Vessels and Star Fragments. Like I find out them starting here, but I'd kind of almost like them to show up in more places, not just Threads of Fate, but sure, fine, like small potatoes.
I'm with you.
I think I'm already on record for like 3 years of saying, maybe even longer, like, okay, nuke the Scroll Steel Shard mechanic, give us a pack ingredient at each of these places, and use that to turn them in, right? So,
yeah, we've been talking that for a long time.
Yeah, I think you've been in on some of those conversations, even.
Yeah. I really like what they're doing here. This is good stuff.
So far, level 30 stuff. The upgrade flow looks great. Existing materials. You will be able to crunch unused seals, scrolls, and shards down into some amount of pack ingredients of the appropriate type.
That's nice. Yeah? My inventory bags, thank you very much. I checked as soon as I read this, and I have something like 5 pages of, in my bank of
they're still in your bank.
Seals, shards, and scrolls. Oh yeah. Sitting in the
I had to pull them out into a gargantuan ingredient bag.
Okay. Yeah. Some of them stack as high as 15, 16, 17 of a sealed shard or scroll.
Too many of them.
Yeah, I got a bunch of them. It's nice. I never threw any of them away. I mean, I didn't always. I don't know. Didn't always grab them all the time, but I could have more. I kind of gave up after a while.
I'm assuming this means that scrolls are going to stop dropping.
Yeah, I think so too. I think everything's going to go to just these fragments, which are going to be. Seems like it's going to be very similar to the fragments of the 12 that drop. Yeah.
I will mention while we're on it with the crunching ingredients, you may go crunch your shards and seals. Maybe hang on to the scrolls, because the scrolls are tradable. So if someone's looking for those ingredients later, you can toss them to friends and stuff. Maybe they're looking for something.
That's a good point.
Because the bits are probably going to be bound to account, right? So I wouldn't be in a rush to go crunch your scrolls. If you need some bits, then by all means go crunch those scrolls. But I might hang on to those just so you can trade them. Maybe put them on the auction house for some shards or something like that. You might get some. I don't know. It sounds like these are supposed to be pretty easy to get, so they're probably not going to, scrolls probably aren't going to be suddenly worth 1,000 shards on the shard exchange. Especially since a lot of the gear that people are going to now be able to upgrade, they don't have anymore. They already crunched it into sentient gems or got rid of it. A lot of it anyways, so do some stuff there. Why not just let the epic items drop as is? Since this is a crafting system, they don't want to invalidate previous progress. If someone has spent 10 years grinding the epic SOS, we don't want to tell that person to keep farming for it. We want to actually let them get that item as soon as the update drops. They've already done the time. We need to let them turn those spare materials, which in this instance represents time that they've already spent grinding, into a tangible reward. What are they going to do about Epic SOS? Nothing. Actually, doesn't seem like it needs to be changed. Are you worried about making these items that have for so long been so rare, so much easier to obtain? The answer was that's only something the players can tell you. I'm not worried about it. Great, fantastic. Also, I'm really stoked about having an epic spell storing ring, and also probably a legendary spell storing ring.
Yeah, I've never had one of those, and I'm super excited about getting that too.
Legendary Sword of Shadows. They are not going to be creating a functional legendary version of the Sword of Shadows. They're to create a version that kept the large expanded critical profile that it's known for. It would be incredibly hard to create other comparable legendary weapons that didn't also feature that same expanded crit profile. they were to make a functional greatsword that used Sword of Shadow's name but didn't have that expanding critical profile, it would feel like a pale imitation of the lower level variants. With that being said, the plan is currently to create a cosmetic version of the Sword of Shadows, featuring brand new art inspired by the current model that can be earned and shown off. We know the solution will not fit all desires, but believe it necessary to avoid painting the item design into a corner. Well, at least they're not going to paint it into a corner right off the bat, right?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, if they were to mess with the Epic Sword of Shadows, they'd get skewered by people who love that item. And so I like what they did here. When there was an imperfect set of options, just keep it where it is.
What if we have old epic items? Will we need to re-obtain them? There is already a Stone of Change recipe that will let you turn any of these epic items into a new version. So no, just throw it in the Stone of Change. It'll fix itself. Please note, be aware this will effectively delete your item and give you a new one. So make sure you don't have augments or sentient gems or sentient filigrees in it that you want to keep. I'll say it again. Before you put the old epic items into the Stone of Change to update them, make sure you take all the stuff you want out of it. It will get deleted.
So now, why wouldn't they just do the same thing that they do when you try and crunch an item that has
I don't know.
augments in it or a filigree in it and say you can't do that? Yeah, they really should. They shouldn't let you do it.
They should. I agree. They should. Absolutely.
We need training wheels on this one.
Yeah. Or I would call it less training wheels and more bumpers.
Okay.
But yes.
Yep.
What about mythic bonuses? Since they aren't dropping these items, they can't rely on the existing mythic tables, so they're probably going to need to get fancy. Current plan. Players will be able to turn a large chunk of Threads of Fate into an item that, when combined with an epic or legendary version of an item, upgrade it to mythic and then mythic, higher mythic. Sort of like the Schism Shards, but more generic. Note this is not present in this preview.
I like that idea. That works.
I'm reading this as though this is going to be applied to like all of the epic and legendary items in the game.
I thought they were saying
wrong, but
I think this meant for
just these ones.
Yeah, for the Seal Shard Scroll ones because they're crafted items and they're not dropping the epic version natively. That's what I thought they were saying.
I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't mind it if they did it for all items.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's great anytime they give you the ability to upgrade loot that you've already acquired some other way.
You know, the mythic Reaper values on stuff, like I'm fine with those being chasers that you can't get. But by golly, give me the sentient gem from Strahd. All right, I'm going to get off that box before I get on it. How does Saltmarsh fit into this? Saltmarsh will contain new level 3 heroic items that then have level 20 and 30 versions using this same thing. The legendary content will still contain a few standalone level 29 items as well as the new augments. Feel free to take a look at the items that we already kind of skipped. Note that there's also something special with certain Saltmarsh items in this system that will get to do something a little different but isn't ready for preview. We're not going to walk through the thing. All non-raid versions of these items, even their epic and legendary versions, are now bound to account instead of bound to character. So cool.
That's really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if well, I guess it'd be a raid item anyways, but I think I kept my epic Merilith chain. I hope I did. Anyways.
I'm excited. I'm excited about the fact that things like epic Merilith chain or it's going to be
Merilith chain.
Yeah, it's going to be useful and fun again. Hopefully I haven't seen what they've done with the red dragon armor, but I mean I always used to really like that as well. So
yeah, people were posting a bunch of pictures and stuff, and again, it's just like, oh my gosh, my brain is in gear overload. This is part of the reason. Like my brain, like I tried to process, hey, there's new items, and I couldn't process how much there was. I was like, okay, shut down. Let me know what I should wear. I'll let the other people figure that out this time around.
I mean, it's really cool. I mean, what is there, like 60 items in the desert chain? There's a lot of items.
Feels like that.
Yeah, it's a ton. That loot table is always overwhelming.
We have to be easily talking about 200 to 300 items here, just from the scroll seal shards. before we even get to the new items that are coming in. There's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah.
So, which
And a lot of
is all good. I think it's just like, oh my gosh, information overload. The thing that I think I'm most excited about with this is I currently tend to wear heroic Sharn gear until I get to the epic, or legendary Sharn gear. So, maybe there's going to be some places to fill some of that stuff in, right? Because some of these
I think
have
so.
set bonuses and stuff, so there might be some opportunity for some improvement there.
I think there could be. I've tended to work in an item or two from the Borderlands level 21 stuff. There's some nice stuff in there with some
I
nice
have
values.
a couple of those, but I still keep the set bonus because the set bonus is so good.
Yeah, it is. Set bonuses are a bit of a double-edged sword, I think, for SSG.
We just got a whole bunch. Red Fens has set bonuses. The Chronoscope has set bonuses.
Claw set can come back. Nice.
Yeah, a lot of stuff there. The other thing I'll say about this is, hey, while we're here, raid tokens for Vault of Night, Chronoscope, and Demon Queen, please. And thank you. Look, people are going to be going back into this content to get these items, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have them anymore because we tossed them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There's probably a few people that have them, but like, let's get the raid runes in here, so that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot and okay, now I gotta go run Demon Queen 20 times until, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I agree. The raid runes has been such a boon for the raiding.
Also, if you don't, people are just gonna go sack these for their 20th completion list. Which I guess if you want to get rid of normal raid bypass timers, sure. But that's kind of the, anyways.
Yeah, you're just gonna do the speed runs on normal or whatever. Yeah.
Last thing in update 50, Horizon Walker. Normally we would go through trees and enhancement trees in more detail. We're not gonna do that this time. One, because there's a bunch of other stuff that we went through in detail. We'll kind of catch it another time, probably like when preview 2, we'll go through it in more detail. My kind of highlights were there were a few interesting mechanics in it. I wasn't really blown away by anything. My initial thought seemed like Deepwood Stalker or Arcane Archer would be better. I'm not necessarily sure that's a problem to a certain point, because if you're going to be a ranger, maybe you should be better at bows than someone else with a non-typical bow. I don't know, right? Like, I think it's okay that those are a little bit more powerful, but maybe not.
It felt to me like a secondary tree, like something that could add in. So maybe if you combine this with like some Kensai stuff, then maybe it would work for you, things like that. But I agree with you. I don't think it's going to compete with what you've got over in the Ranger tree, and I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Definitely the Vistani Night Fighter was more powerful and was a capable lead tree on its own.
Right.
This one doesn't seem to be there. I think my biggest thing with it was I'm not sure I really am going to enjoy the whole marking the target stuff.
Sure.
That I would almost rather that was a passive apply versus something you have to manually do. I don't know, that part of it felt a little like too much work for me. I don't know, maybe that's just my play style. I don't tend to like that sort of thing. But
Goldie Go from the chat says that Fighter and Kensai would be a good combo. Yeah, I agree. Steel started responded to some feedback though. He said overall a lot of you seemed to like the tree conceptually, but had concern about the overall power level of the tree being too low, and concerns about the usefulness of specific skills. He's going to address a few of those. The overall power level of the tree is going up. Damage numbers in most places are either getting larger or scaling better. You all brought up a bunch of bugs. They're hoping to knock those out entirely for preview 2. The marked target debuffs in the course felt low to a lot of you. We're bringing the numbers up on those. But I'll just point out, this is one of the things I really kind of liked about the tree, of having this be kind of more of a debuff flavored tree. Because I feel like that's a good kind of niche spot to put ranged. I don't feel like range typically has a lot of debuffy things going for it in the way that some other things do.
Well, I think that's good for, again, if we're talking about a secondary tree, adding something like that in. One thing I'd like to kind of highlight is the tier 3 Battle Trance, which is interesting because it's doing the old insight bonus to damage, and DCs equal to 1/2 of, in this case, your dexterity modifier, which
Yeah.
is a stat that doesn't really have that. But
Doesn't have it at
they're
all right now, right?
yeah, no, but they're doing it with charges. It has 5 charges versus all the other ones that you see everywhere else.
The
There's no
falconry
charges.
one has charges.
Does it have charges? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I
Um,
thought that was a little, that was an interesting mechanic though, and it's coming without including any dex to hit or damage. A lot of these trees often will pair the trance with those as well, and this one doesn't offer that.
and I will say too, like on the like, that's actually an example of how to do charges well compared to the Epic Destiny system that I didn't like, because
Yeah.
you start with a number, you expend them, and then you can build them back at your own
Mhm.
pace, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have degradation.
Mhm.
Some of you felt the cores in general were a little low on power as they largely only boosted the mark. We're planning on adding a few things. Core 2 will also give +3 max dex bonus. Actually, we didn't go through all this, so I'm not going to read all of this stuff here. Except that Core 6 is tentatively going to be get a new, very powerful thing. He's going to hold off on talking about it as they're still debating whether or not to keep this new version. I like that, though. I think in terms of universal trees, the cores need a little extra to make the cores in tier 5s tend to need something compelling to keep you in those as opposed to your normal class trees. So
I agree with that 100%. Yeah, that's always been my feeling too. Is that's where they tend to they tend to seem really useful tiers 1, 2, and 3, and then they tend to not have the value in terms of doing deep investments.
there was some concern
Yeah.
about non-range characters having enough to spend to get no miss or no step missed. This is the Dex Trance. After talking with the team, they decided to leave it where it is. There may be another tree in the future more suited to melees with a Dex Trance in it. That said, they have made some adjustments to tier 1 and 2 that may make it a bit easier for non-range builds to feel good about their points spent to reach it. I think it's a great. I like
Yeah.
that as a compromise. Right?
Mhm. Well, yeah, I saw Steelstar posted something at one point talking about how to get there, and it included spending points in weathered gear, which is the negating potential item wear.
Yay.
I don't know if you've have you ever spent points on negating item wear? Why do those exist?
Have I? Yes. Mostly related to I need to spend points in the tree and don't know where else to spend them.
They just seem like a
Moments.
point. They seem like an AP tax to me.
And I think I did spend like 1 or 2 on hardcore because I needed to spend some points to go up, and it seemed like since it wasn't an end game build, like I didn't need the like plus to skills, plus to intimidate skills, so I took that since I didn't have a lot of cash for repairing anyways.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
there were some concerns about take the opening. So that was an ability that if you hit something at 100%, you get extra damage. They've increased the bonus damage to 1d10 force damage per character level, and it's scaling with 200% range power. This is one of those things that like I like the concept, but I don't know. I feel like it needs to do something when it doesn't apply. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I like that it's if you make the first hit when it's 100%. That's kind of neat, but especially with like a boss, like one coordinating with that, like you have to be in the front because coordinating with everyone else is going to be impossible, and not enough damage to really worry about in the long run. And you know, if you're fighting a raid boss for 30 minutes, you don't get to use his ability for 30 minutes. I don't know if this ability is that good just from a concept standpoint. I don't think it needs to be the opening shot needs to be more damage. I think it needs something else on top of it, right? Like you want to take the opening, like okay, maybe it does some damage on that if it's at 100%, but what if it also just did some amount of damage if someone else hit it in the last second or something like that, right?
I would rather see that too. Yeah, this feels like something that just isn't going to get used enough, and like it creates gameplay issues. that
Yeah.
I just don't think make a lot of sense, especially not in group play.
Or
Um,
maybe a debuffy thing, or maybe it does extra damage if the monster's fortification is reduced, or something like that, right? Like, I don't know how feasible any of those are, but
if you're going to do something like this, I would, rather than having it be at 100%, I would say put it at like 90% or higher, or 85 or something. Give it a little bit more of a range there, so
sure,
that
I like that.
if someone did come in there and dink it first, then you. And I agree with you. A debuff might be nice as well, or rather than just more damage. There can be some value to that. But the way this is written, though, I'm not sure I would ever want to do it.
Few people wanted connection to Archer's Focus. While it still requires standing still, they're planning a tier 3 ability that would grant you extra stacks. Seems good. Walker's Guidance felt underpowered. They've moved it down to tier 4 and have changed it to grant you and target ally evasion, improved evasion, +5 to saving throws versus traps for 12 seconds. That's kind of fun. I'm curious to see how that plays maybe on hardcore.
Yeah.
Could be a fun place for that.
Yeah.
Quite a few were unsure about tumbling frequently for dodge and strike. They've doubled its power and moved it up, resulting in a new skill in tier 5. When you tumble or use Misty Step, you gain range power equal to your character level for 12 seconds with a 12-second cooldown. Yeah, that might be a little bit much. I'm going to say that the problem here is not so much that as much as it is with Archer's Focus, right? Like, you need to compel me to lose stacking Archer's Focus for that time period, for a brief time, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem I see there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, with Misty Step, using it will also grant reflex saves and incorporality during the step, allowing it to be used more easily to get through dangerous situations. They're also improving Scatter Shot, giving it the +1 critical threat range and multiplier that Mini Shot gets, and another new tier 5 skill above it, Power Shot. Whenever you critically hit an enemy with Mini Shot or Scatter Shot, that enemy takes 1d6 force damage per character level, 200% range power scaling. So that's not even all the other changes. There's a few other nice surprises tentatively scattered through the tree as well. So there you go. It felt like it was a good starting point. It also felt like it was a little lackluster, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. It's not as bad as Harper, but it's definitely not what we've kind of come used to with Inquisitive and Vistani and some of the more recent trees that have a little bit more to them. That's
it
fair
also
to say.
doesn't feel like Inquisitive, like overpowered Inquisitive. That's kind of like, all right, well, get this in while it's hot before they nerf it. Yeah.
Yeah, both Vistani and Inquisitive had builds. Inquisitive more so than Vistani, but Vistani had some nice builds too that did a lot of damage.
Yeah, I did.
This one doesn't quite have that for sure. So, but I also don't know that the builders have had enough time to play.
Mm-hmm.
They'll find the sweet spot.
All right, that is update 50 preview. So we're going to talk about game news. Let's see. A reminder, this is your final weekend to run hardcore. It's available through June 29th. They'll have more information about the after party soon, but it will be sooner than later. It won't immediately follow the closure. They have to do some work on it, capture some information, that kind of thing. But also some stuff that we didn't get to last week because Epic Destinies was huge. And we had a lot to talk about with that. Radiant Servant updates. So this is updates. They rearranged parts of the tree to make more thematic sense. They increased Divine Aid to 3% positive spell critical damage. The Raised Dead SLA was replaced with a Mass Resist Energy SLA, 75 spell points, which is the same cost as the Tier 3 Destiny thing that's right now? Question mark? I think that's about right.
Yeah,
I like that though. That's a nice one.
Yeah, I think that's a nice add.
When you have Mighty Turning and attempt to turn an undead that is immune to death effects, it will now attempt to turn the creature. That's actually a bug fix.
Okay.
Martyrdom is now 1 rank and does what the old rank 3 did. Now reliably does what it says it does. Heals nearby allies, damages nearby undead, and doesn't do anything to non-undead enemies. There are a lot of cool and interesting ideas, almost all of which are beyond the scope of what they can do in this revamp, so there might be some future tweaks down the line. Shader Kai, they didn't end up making any tweaks to what they had in the original post, in part because they had a lot of other things to do to get done with Lamania. and the scope is small. There are some interesting ideas again, but scope and time is kind of the relevant thing there. Epic Destiny's preview feedback. So, howdy, folks. They've been working hard at work reading and absorbing all of the feedback we gave them over the last week. They wanted to share more about what they've been discussing. The following was put together by... we have more previews coming up shortly. As a reminder, these previews are for Update 50, which is different than the Epic Destiny rework. What this means is that although they're still going to be iterating and building the ED framework behind the scenes, you won't get a chance to see it in action until after Update 50 launches. I would probably even go a step further to say that there might be another, like a patch preview as well afterwards. Sometimes that happens, so we'll see. Epic and Destiny feats. They started out this revamp assuming that we'd be able to proxy buff a ton of the old Epic and Destiny feats by adding in bonuses tied to the new ED abilities. It looks like we need to do more to make these feats more enticing. They can dedicate some time to revamp the lesser used options beyond making them tie into the trees, and the tree tie-ins themselves can stand to be far punchier as well. Returning abilities. One of the bigger goals with the system was to complete a reorganization of some of the assorted epic abilities into more appropriate places. This could be as complicated as moving all of the Smite evil attacks from one tree to another, or as simple as ensuring that some cut abilities can end up somewhere appropriate, like Tsunami going to Druid spellbooks. What they can do in the future is do a much better job of communicating when certain abilities will make a return, either as a feat, a class spell, or even a new Destiny down the line. 3. What belongs in Tier 5? A large amount of feedback thus far has been centered around the question of what belongs in Tier 5. The initial judgment was that things that were roughly Tier 5 or 6 in the old Destinies belong to Tier 5 of the new Destinies. After this first preview, they've changed their minds considerably for quite a few abilities. Given that players will only get access to Tier 5 at level 30, should be 29, we need to match Tier 5 to contain either almost entirely new things or things that are too powerful not to remain exclusive, and let some other Tier 5-6 abilities pull downwards so players can access them sooner. On that note, one of the most unexpected pieces of feedback for them was just how much love there was for the concept of an epic moment. With that in mind, they can do a better job of ensuring that each tree has a Tier 5 ability that matches those expectations, although they want to spend more time discussing internally before committing to that kind of redesign. I still don't understand why players like epic moments is surprising.
I agree.
Epic moments were awesome.
That was my biggest criticism of the whole thing, is it wasn't necessarily 1 through 4. It was that the Tier 5s just didn't feel... I mean, if we're going to have to wait for this stuff now till level 30, and if we're going to be using this stuff as the core stuff when we're going through the next, whatever, say 10 levels, just for argument's sake, and the only thing we don't see yet are those last couple cores, then the Tier 5 stuff needs to be really, really, really special. And it just didn't feel like that. And there was too many things that were missing that we already had. So I'm with you on that.
The epic moments were the fun part.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Turning into a tree was awesome. It was buggy as hell. It never worked right, but it was awesome.
Lag inducing, but it was awesome. Yeah. I agree. I remember, EIN clearing rooms in one, punch motion. Awesome stuff.
Point 4 was about monster and contact difficulty. This debut on Illuminati didn't make it explicit that they were making big changes to difficulty monsters. We just covered those in this show. Although I will say, for comparison, what they put here, which was not in what we talked about earlier, for comparison, switching a monster in older epics to the new formulas often results in a loss of maximum hit points anywhere from 25 to 50%. Holy cow.
That's really nice. I can't tell you how much of a slog it feels like when you're just wailing away on some random mob forever.
Right? Yeah. Hear you. Range power, they initially ballparked the amount of range power per core at 6. It's clear it's not enough, so they'll be raising it to 8. Builders, spenders, and the charge system. Hello, my old enemy. Let's see. The overwhelming majority of the feedback has been centered on this, which is why they want to take some extra time and discuss options before committing to something. They're looking at several paths to follow, some of which make the system less time-sensitive and some that cut it completely. The charge system as a whole is not formally necessary for the Epic Destiny overhaul, so if we need to, we can move it in a different direction. Charges are fine. Degradation is sucky.
I agree. I liked the mantles concept, of having like
Yeah.
a stance thing. That part was fine. I
It
agree
needed
with you.
some tweaking to it, but yeah.
It needs some balance and some tweaking because some of the mantles were trash. Like the monk one was ridiculous.
Thank you.
But yeah, in general, that idea was fine. And the idea of the spender is fine too. Again, as long as you've got the charges, it was just the way they were doing the whole thing didn't make a lot of sense. I'm with you.
Initial Destiny points. A change we'll be making internally is they want to tell you all right now is that it's also going to be raising the amount of fate points gained for each tree unlocked from 3 to 3 from 2. This means that each epic Destiny tree you unlock by speaking to the appropriate NPC will grant you +1 permanent Destiny point. It also means the default starting pool is 12. They're going to experiment with this and see how it feels. You'll likely get a chance to try it out higher.
Does this mean that there's overall more points to spend?
A little bit, yeah.
That's good. Okay. Interesting.
Because it would have gone from... So now you'll have 36 instead of 24. So yeah, you get 4 more points to spend in the trees.
So the maximum was like 57 or 59. So now it's going to be up around.
The max was.
It was
Wasn't paying that close
pretty
attention.
High. Okay.
I mean, I'm still gonna get on the soapbox of just get rid of fate points and just make it one like epic destiny points or fate points equal points you spend in the destinies, and just get rid of the formula and make it work. Just make it simpler. I'm still landing there.
I agree.
Question: do the cores in each tree stack? Yes, everything but the spell DC specifically in each tree stacks with every other tree. I don't know how they're going to tell us that other than here, but there you go. What's happening to Epic Past Lives? Everything that's currently available will remain available after this overhaul. The only thing changing is that you'll get more fate points for your past lives, and you will no longer need to level up in Epic Destiny and gain Karma XP to Epic Reincarnate. All great things. Can you tell us about the other Destiny trees you have planned? They are thematically connected to Artificer, Alchemist, and Warlock, 3 classes whose mechanics and archetypes didn't get much specific love from the original AD system. Not slated to be released in Update 51 with the initial set of 12 Destinies. Are you doing this so you can build legendary Destinies? No. Funnily enough, the first paper draft of Epic Overhaul from over a year ago involved something similar, but they opted to overhaul the current EDs instead due to internal feedback and feedback from the council. These new Destinies are built to scale with a huge number of points and are confident that allowing players to become more powerful is a more compelling system of progression than just pushing them to an entirely new one for legendary content. One thing that could be interesting.
I agree with that.
Yeah. One thing that could be interesting is maybe at when you take level 31, you get a 4th Destiny. You can take a 4th Destiny. That could be cool. Interesting.
I agree. I think there's a lot of ways to make this more interesting as you're going beyond 30. I didn't like the idea of a legendary system stacked on top of the epic system and the heroic system and the reaper system. It felt too many different systems.
Are you going to do anything about reset costs for new EDs? Yes. Ideally, any system doesn't completely bankrupt your character if you'd like to spend your points differently. We'll have more details once they finalize the new cost to reset is structured. On the bankrupting note, question about the cost of Reaper Wings.
Seriously. Not that I have Reaper Wings, but if I did.
There's also a question of, hey, can we have some presets to swap back and forth between? In the first draft, one of the features they considered was something similar to that. They did investigations into the scope and cost, and it was colossal. Emphasizing colossal. Potentially something someday, but it's far outside the scope of what they can do as part of this pass at this time. I'm not holding my breath on that.
Yeah, no, this is something I think when you and I had a conversation on one of these DDOcasts a while back of like, what are your top things? And one of the things that I would like to see is the ability to save your heroic enhancement configuration and swap it at the click of a button. Respend all your points in different ways. Same thing with this would make a lot of sense. I would love also, like you have the weapon swaps, to have entire gear set swaps where you can, save off all 11 accessory items, and then just click a button, and it gives you the configuration you want. So
I
they
feel
could
like
make
the
a
game
lot
would
of money.
crash.
They could make a lot of money if they could figure that out, though, because they could sell those, and people would buy them and love it. And it wouldn't add any power. It's not power creep. It's just quality of life stuff.
The server performance, I imagine, would be bad. But, bonus days. Through today, June 27th, you get +5 Reaper XP boost. Also through June 30th, VIPs get a 15% XP boost. So, woohoo. Yeah. Double bonus points is back through July 5th. So if you're looking for some more points, there you go. Improve your character as a sale, 20% off of stat tomes, skill tomes, tomes of heroic and epic learning, and the Harper Age enhancement tree through July 1st. And the coupon code Jeweler's Toolkit, coupon code UNSLOTS through July 1st. That's a good one. Make sure you pick that one up.
Absolutely.
That'll take us to the community news, the 431st Chronicle. We got a shout out for our show last week talking about Epic Destiny changes. Thanks for highlighting that. And let's see, Strimtom took a look at upcoming loot. So you can check out his video there. The guild for the week, Argo guilds. Looks like there are a couple of players, including a new player looking for guilds. Checking out on the recruitment forums. Also, that means that Jerry really needs some new guilds to highlight. Even if you've been highlighted before, you can probably get highlighted here. The comment, are dried rations that you get from the tavern considered takeout? I mean, I don't consider rations takeout, personally.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Let's see. We also got a shout out for the video I did of when we ran Cult of Six on hardcore. Ordinum Syncletica found a new path following the changes to Zen Archer. Mickey plans Life 12. And let's see. DDO stream on Twitch. You can find Fridays on Ice, DDOPL. And Cordovan took a group back to Shantycore tabletop style. On Twitch, they're giving shout-outs to Deathy TV, running High Skull Reaper Heroics. Semeku Grogarian went on a Saga project, and Voodoo Spice thanks supporters in a Sunday special. And on YouTube, Axel talked about the Radiant Servant changes, Six Sided Gaming, and Sophia Plays also got shout-outs as well. I'll say other stuff. Don't forget to check out D&D Night on DDO Stream Sundays at twitch.tv/DDO Stream at 7 p.m. Eastern. There will not be a show on the 4th of July, which is next Sunday. We decided to take a holiday off since it's falling on Sunday. But there'll be more of that coming back. And I think tonight, if you listen to this live in about half an hour, Evil Beaker is running, I think, Classic D&D Night tonight. That'll take us to some lightning post. We had a couple people, like I said, some comments this week that were great to see some of that happening. So thanks for all those who commented. I'm just going to highlight a couple because I think most of the comments tended to be along the lines of, yes, we agree. Thanks for the passion. Apparently, my ranting was appreciated and people enjoyed it. Adriano said, regarding the discussion about level 29 not being important in the new system or why it was left empty, feels the fact that it's the level where you get your endgame gear came into place. That already represents a good jump in power for your gear. You need to look at it from an overall game systems and gear perspective, not just Destiny's. Yes, this was a really great point. And as I mentioned earlier, we just learned that argument got completely undercut this week. But otherwise, yes, it was a good point that gear is part of that leveling experience. We'll see how much of that is true going forward. Teresa also said, for each passive completion, give an extra heroic feat slot. Pick up a heroic level feat, weapon proficiency, DC boost, toughness, or whatever. But something each character can pick, not just generic hit points or spell points. Something to get a little something unique to each character. I really like this idea. This is like for epic completionist.
Yeah.
That's kind of a fun idea, right? Like just get an extra feat. I like that idea. It's a good idea.
You could make the list limited so that it's not overpowered. Like she mentions here, things
What
like
are you going to get in
toughness.
heroic feats that's overpowered?
Nothing much.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that works. I like that idea. All right, that'll be our show this week. Anything you want to plug, sir?
No, I'm good.
Well, thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for the folks hanging out with us in the chat today. And thanks to all the contributors for DDOCast and to Asheras for joining us today. And to Standing Some Games, the Wizard of the Coast, and to Cyber Ears for hosting the podcast. Hopefully next week, I think next week we'll probably get the second half of our Update 49 review out. The last 2 weeks were pretty Lamania news heavy, as can happen. So that's probably what it'll be next week. I think there's supposed to be a week off before the next preview, I heard. So not expecting a big Lamania preview this next week. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com as well. You can hit us up at ddocast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. That includes some tabletop D&D, a couple other games, me playing DDO, probably more of that in the future. If you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for latest cast updates. At DDOCast on Twitter is the best place to do that. So may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.